So good evening and welcome to the 2022 York Region Sustainability Awards. My name is Brent Copperson and I'm the founder and executive director of Windfall Ecology Center. This is our first in-person event in, since March of 2020, so 2.5 years ago. So it's really great to be in front of a bunch of people and to see a bunch of people in person on site. It's been a long haul for all of us, I think, with the pandemic, and we're certainly pleased to be here tonight on site and in person. Our last event was virtual last November, and that was a pretty exciting event, and we did some pretty crazy things there. We had Shania Twain, a devilishly good Shania Twain look-alike and sing-alike. And that was a lot of fun, and our host for that event, Harry French over there, was in a tuxedo. I noticed, Harry, you're not dressed as well this evening. Anyway, this is, before we go any further, it's important to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of the Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Sawney, and the Anishinaabe peoples who have a strong presence in our community to this day, and we thank them for sharing the land. And I should recognize that tomorrow is National Truth and Reconciliation Day, and that's a time for reflection, I think, for all of us on Canada's history and the importance of our First Nation communities. And we recognize the contributions and historic importance of Indigenous people to this place and our collective commitment to make the promise and challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our community. And I want to recite to you some heartfelt words of Nablish Quay and Marilyn Capriole, both Indigenous elders from the Shawanaga First Nation northwest of Parry Sound. And if you close your eyes for a minute, I think you can feel where they're coming from and see where they're coming from in this land acknowledgement. Acknowledging the lands and waters of the Indigenous nations before us, we are humbled to imagine the gentle wake of the canoes and the blade of the paddles gently and gracefully marking the waters. Using the land in a good way, leaving only a soft footprint on the land, and caring for the gifts she provides. Wind and trees working in unison, still singing the songs today, as in the hundreds of years past. We acknowledge these sacred gifts of Mother Earth in our local territories of the Indigenous peoples. Thank you, Marilyn and Quay, for that. So let's carry these words into tonight's event as we acknowledge those businesses and organizations in York Region working to use the land and waters in a good way, or at least a better way, to paraphrase Nablish and Marilyn. So we're here tonight to celebrate the achievement of York Region businesses taking action on climate change, to hear motivating discussion from our Inspiring Stories panel, and to network and with our peers and our colleagues and our friends and supporters. And of course, to enjoy the fabulous food here in this reimagined Aurora venue, the Aurora Armoury. Although I must say, as somebody who's been doing energy efficiency for the last 20 years, I would have insulated the ceiling. But I want to also thank our sponsors, the Ontario Trillium Foundation, for their generous support over the years, and Dynacert, and you'll be hearing more about Dynacert a little later on in today's program. So for our agenda today, we just completed our first networking session, and I hope you enjoyed the food. There'll be more food and drink available later on. And we're moving next to our Inspiring Stories panel. That'll be in a few minutes, and after that, we'll take another break. And following that, there'll be networking opportunities right through to we close shop at 9:30. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge a couple of people who made this event possible. Audrey Baynes, can you identify yourself? Right there. Lola Day Ojemi at the back there. Lola Day, wave your hand. Thank you. And of course, I want to acknowledge Harry French, the leader of our ClimateWise Business Network, and basically the creative mind behind our event. So Harry, come on up and let's get this show on the road. Thank you very much.
As Brent mentioned, my name is Harry French. I'm the program manager for the ClimateWise Business Network here at the Windfall Ecology Center. And I have the pleasure tonight of, working with a team of very talented people to put this event together, and for welcoming some wonderful panelists to our event tonight and to our Inspiring Stories panel. Also, I'll be moderating the ClimateWise Business Network Awards, and my colleague Audrey will help moderate or facilitate the ClimateWise Building Challenge Awards, which are a little different in how we're doing them. Through our stories and sharing achievements, our goal as a business network, as a Windfall Ecology Center, is to help organizations reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and to build momentum in our community for taking action on climate change, for addressing the existential emergency, climate emergency that we're all very much aware of in this room. Storytelling is one way of doing that. Storytelling is vivid descriptions of ideas, of beliefs, of experiences of life general. Stories teach us through emotions and insights. They evoke emotions and insights, and they evoke lessons for us. In business, we kind of call those best practices. There's a bit of a mundane name in some ways versus stories. But stories give us facts about actions that we can take, and those facts are important, but what's also important is the emotions behind the story. It's those emotions that often motivate us to take action and to take change in our world, particularly as we deal with the issue of climate change. Tonight, we're going to hear a story from three storytellers, or our guest panelists. We asked our guests about a challenge or an obstacle they encountered in their sustainability journey in their organizations, with their staff, with their partners in some cases, or with their stakeholders or with their customers. And importantly, to identify or talk about some of the challenges or obstacles that they encountered and how in fact they overcame those. So, and then once they've made their little story and told you a little about that, we're going to do a little bit of a drill down in terms of what are some of the hidden dimensions behind those stories. Not only the facts, but what are some of the motivating emotions and feelings that they had as they went through their own particular journeys as corporations that inspired change. So I'd like to first of all introduce, before we get into, obviously we have to have the panel to sit up here in the front, so I'll ask Eddie Locke to come up, Amir Fahari to come up, and Salma Fotavat. These three executives from organizations have generously volunteered their time with us here tonight to share their stories, to answer some questions about a bit of a digger deep into the story, and perhaps if we have some time, some questions from you as an audience. So I'd like to first of all introduce them. First of all, Eddie Locke. Eddie is president of Community First Developments, Inc. He leads a team of 120 members who service 96 properties in the GTA, including 38 affordable housing communities, 19 condominium communities, and 39 condominium communities. I don't have my glasses on, and 19 commercial properties. I'm sure that number's probably changed since I've got this information, but Eddie can elaborate on that. Salma Fotavat. Salma is a co-founder and director of sourcing and procurement at Riverside Natural Foods Limited here in York Region, in the Vaughan area, and now also, I believe, in North York. In fact, I'm sure you're international in some of your activities. In fact, she's just returned from a trip to India this past week, where she was focused on Riverside's regenerative agricultural initiatives, which we may hear a little bit more tonight from Salma. Amir Fahari is the Director of Corporate Governance Committee of Dynacert and Principal of Focus GRP. Amir is advisor and shareholder to a number of environmentally focused companies. He is a former columnist for Metroland Media Group and a political commentator with Bell Media. So tonight I'd like to, we have a format of 10 minutes each for our panelists, and then we'll go into 3 or 4 key focused questions and some time for the audience, if there is some time to ask their own questions. So I'm going to start, first of all, with Eddie. And Eddie, I'm going to kind of watch my time and give you maybe a 1-minute warning when you're reaching 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Harry.
Go ahead.
Well, it's really a privilege to see all of you. And one thing I do have to say is, like, I didn't expect I would be sitting on a chair without anything in front of me. So this is why I brought my computer. I thought I would have a little table in front of me. And then, so sitting on a chair like this is like almost like we're bearing it all. So that's that's the insecure side of me that will be saying. So if you don't mind, so I'm just going to let the computer cover part of me. And sorry. Okay. So this is the so just a little bit about. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. What I was told is what I was told by Harry is to tell us, I'll tell you guys a little bit about what I have done, what our team has done is about the story. So the story is about Community First Development, Inc. This is the company that I'm heading. And in particular, we want to talk about the Energy Management Division. We do have a name of our Energy Management Division of our company. It's called AGES, AGES Building Energy and Sustainability. So this is a story about AGES. So first off is who am I? My name is Eddie Locke. I grew up in Hong Kong. And then I went to Minnesota for university and graduate study. I studied business administration and urban geography, but I've lived in Toronto for the last 33 years. I've worked in project management for about 34 years, and then I started out working in a student co-op when I was in university. And then after I came to Toronto, I started managing affordable housing and then condominium and then commercial properties. I joined Community First, or CFDI, we called it, the short, in 1996, and now I'm the president for the last 5 years. My first experience in energy conservation, probably some of you may share it, is I remember when I was little, it was back in 1974, there was the first oil crisis. Some of you might have remembered that. The reason I still remember that is because I remember walking to school when it was still very dark, because they did the winter daylight saving time. Some of you, now I know that they didn't do it. I actually did some checking. They didn't do it in Canada, but they did in the States. Canada was thinking about doing it, but decided not to, okay? But I was in Hong Kong, and somehow they follow the gringos. And so we had to venture out when it was dark, and it was, during the winter time. So that was the first time I saw, oh, okay, it matters a little bit to me. So that was my first recollection of energy thing. The second time I remember it struck me was when I was in university. I was living in a dormitory that was an earth home. Some of you may know what an earth home is. It's partially it is kind of underground and partially it is above. So it was kind of experimental. So I lived in a student housing for I think a couple months. I think it was in the summertime, and then I found that at first I was skeptical. I was like, what is this? At that time I didn't know about hobbits. But it was actually quite comfortable. And so that was my experience about there's sustainable design out there. So anyway, so that was in the back of my mind. That was kind of my when I was growing up, I had this experience. So how about AGES? How about the energy division of CFDI? So we started the division in 2020. So, and Harry already mentioned about what we do in terms of CFDI. And so one thing about is that in property management, the challenge oftentimes is that people don't pay too much attention to energy management. Energy is oftentimes an afterthought, especially back in I would say in the 90s or even in the early 2000s. Energy was not really a crisis. Gas was relatively cheap, you know. Except briefly, I would say, some of you also may remember is like in the, maybe up to in the early 2000s, gas prices got to be really high. And then we were saying like, oh, okay, we're going to do something about it. And then came fracking, you know, and then gas prices dropped. And then people would say, oh, okay, the crisis is over, you know, we can go back and use the old furnaces again, you know, forget about the retrofit, you know. I mean, some of you may remember that. I mean, this is no different from people like, they're driving the big Hummer pickup and, you know, when the gas was cheap, they'll say, you know, they'll bring it out of the garage, drive the pickup, you know, as much as possible, and then, you know, and now, of course, they're thinking about, okay, I need to go back to the Civic. But that's, unfortunately, I think that's one of the challenges that we face, you know, is like people are very, like sometimes the culture is very transactional, very like kind of immediate, you know, it's like, okay, what do I see, you know, in front of me? And so our challenge sometimes is like, well, how do we do something long-term and more holistic, you know? And I think that's the challenges, one of the challenges that we face. So anyway, so we create this energy division about 2 years ago because I think I was, again, the need to deal with energy management and conservation holistically and also with a long-term view to help the buildings and more importantly, the communities to be sustainable. And by sustainable, like we also meant like not just energy, but also like water management and also like waste management. So currently our team, we have got 2 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff of this energy management team. We have an energy engineer, an energy manager, and a technologist. So that's how we started. Now, so the vision, so when I was saying like holistic and like long-term, again, energy management for the long time, it is kind of like scattered, you know, not really coordinated, you know, there are different things, there's the technical side. So when we set out to do, you know, we set out like kind of like 10, our vision is to provide holistic and long-term energy solutions. And we have like 10 scope of work, or the scope of work, 10 items. We've looked at the regular stuff like energy monitoring, you know, data collection and whatnot, energy audit. And there's the energy project implementation, and also like we also deal with, at the same time we also deal with like partnership with companies and also government programs to bring in rebates, incentives, and grants and whatnot. And also we look at like energy procurement, you know, alternative energies. And one thing that we would like to look into, but we haven't really started, is like, you know, carbon pricing and carbon trade and whatnot. And one thing, however, I would say like one thing that we want to do, and this is kind of like the elephant, I would say, you know, when we deal with like energy management, is consumer behavior. And that's oftentimes, you know, we can do so much in terms of changing like the supply of energy, but if the consumer behaviors don't get changed, well, then, you know, and especially, and oftentimes we find that, you know, we're fighting a culture that is, again, like I said earlier, more like a consumer culture, you know, transactional culture is like, you know, well, if I pay this, you know, I'm supposed to get that, you know, and then, you know, I'm not going to get 1 penny less. So, and that's sometimes like, that's the, and that's the issue that we deal with, you know, and especially when it comes to property management. We have, I mean, in many of the older buildings, you know, they still bulk meter. It's not like individual meters, and so people don't care. You know, it's like, well, you know, my neighbor is going to pay for, you know, like I'm going to turn on everything, and then my neighbor is going to pay for it. And also, we also face like struggle, you know, like with in terms of property management. When we try to do, let's say, take for example, like sub-metering or individual metering, there we face the issue about like regulations. Condominium, oh, we have to change the decoration. We've changed the decoration, eh? 2 minutes. 2 minutes, thank you. Like change the decoration, 90% you need, okay? Or, so we are trying to say, okay, how about changing the common elements? You know, some of you who live in condo, you know, maybe you're on the board, you may know about this, you know? And, well, I mean, changing the common elements, you still need 2/3 of the units, you know? So if you deal with like 200 units, then you need like 133 units to say yes, oh, okay, we're going to change this. We're going to bring in like individual meters. Not easy, you know? So that's the challenge. I mean, the challenge that we generally would deal with is that, you know, property management business is often risk averse, fiscally conservative. People look at cost, you know, very diligently. We deal with regulations and processes, and And sometimes there's like functional obstacles, you know, you want to change, you want to retrofit the buildings. Well, it means that, oh, you may have to change the wirings and whatnot. So the project sometimes is much bigger than you thought, you know, and sometimes that is like there's some technical challenges. People may not have confidence on new technology or equipment, and then after all, consumption behaviors are very hard to change in a culture of kind of like more transactional and short-sighted. So have we had some success? We do have some successes. I mean, like we have been able to, like 80% of our projects, you know, of our current projects are now on energy management. And then we also have been able to secure like $1.5 million in government funding in the last year, you know, to do retrofit and whatnot. We're working on about $2 million more this year. And also one thing exciting is that in the past summer, we have used summer students to start doing putting in a program to start changing, like studying consumer behavior and changing the consumer behavior in 5 buildings. So we're trying to take what we have studied or what we have learned to put into some sort of template, maybe as a beginner to try to look into consumer behavior in a building and try to see how we can change some of the behavior, how we can educate and communicate with the residents to change the behavior. So while we are doing it, we're not making any money. I mean, the energy division at this point is not making any money at all for us. But we are doing it because we're not trying to turn a profit, but we are doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's not a profitable thing to do, but it's the right thing to do, especially not just for me, but for younger people like many of you.
Sounds like it is.
Thank you.
Selma, if we could go with you.
Just not used to talking in a microphone, but. And just a correction, Harry, my trip to India was about, we have another project, which is Riverside is plastic neutral for the last year, so that was that project. So Regenerative Project is in Canada, which I will be speaking about. No, I just wanted to just be clear. So good evening, everyone. Really excited to be here. I thought I would start with sharing a bit of a personal journey with a couple of stories that really framed my perspective around sustainability, this big word that means everything and nothing to a lot of us. So I'll start with my first opportunity. I was in my 20s, and I had the chance to work at my dad's business. He was an early advocate of organic agriculture because he was manufacturing organic snack bars. Now, this was over 30 years ago when organic was, I'll tell you, not mainstream, definitely not on trend. And so it was a tough journey for him to have to educate customers about the benefits of organic and really get them to believe that it was the right way forward. And just to set the stage, he was an immigrant to Canada, didn't have a lot of resources, not a lot of networks, or didn't know much about the market, but he believed that organic was the way to go even early on. I remember him telling me that they had to fly in an organic auditor from the US, because there was nobody available locally. So by the time I joined, my siblings were already working there, I had access to a great network of individuals and companies who innately knew that organic was good for the people, good for the planet, and go figure, good for business. And so that experience early on cultivated in me the ideology that businesses can be a force for good and not just to make profit. My second opportunity and story I want to share happened just over 9 years ago, where through a series of unplanned events, my siblings and I found ourselves in our parents' basement at a crossroads. Our dad's business were no longer in the picture, and we had to decide, what were we going to do? Were we going to go our separate ways and do our own thing, or are we going to come together and start something new? And there was a lot of pressure, because with limited funds, we knew we had one chance to get it right. And what I mean by getting it right was not only did we have to create a company that made great tasting, organic, better for you snacks, because that was the business we knew, but it also had to stand for something bigger than ourselves. It had to be a company that made an impact. That was non-negotiable. At least that was one thing we all agreed on. And so we went all in and started Riverside Natural Foods, more popularly known for its brand Made Good. Now, through running our business, I realized obviously there's a lot of responsibility that goes with it. But the one responsibility that I believe trumps all others is the responsibility to be a good corporate citizen. So what does that mean? What does that look like at Riverside right now? It's really leading by example. It's showing up and doing our part. And that in of itself really helps us, you know, walk the walk, so to speak. So, and moving forward, I guess, where it relates to climate change, we all know that the impacts are real. We all know the impacts are ongoing. And there are fires, there are floods, there are droughts. They displace communities. They disrupt people's livelihoods. They can wipe out an entire crop in 10 minutes. I've seen that happen with our commodities over the past several years. It's devastating. So knowing this, knowing that, sorry, I get really excited about this, and it's just knowing that our growers are at the front line of climate change, knowing that they're the ones who are feeding our communities and our families, and the fact that Riverside directly benefits from their hard work and dedication, we knew we had to do something. We had to go further in the agriculture space and make our impact. So we had heard about regenerative agriculture. It wasn't a new topic for us, but we wanted to see how we can fit it within our business model. So we thought tackling our biggest agriculture input, which is oats, would be a great place to start. So we got curious, we started to learn more and see how we can relate it to what we were doing. We quickly realized we are not the experts. So we had to bring in the experts. We knew it was the growers because they're in it day in and day out. We had our vendor partners who had the relationships with the growers, and we partnered up with Canadian organic growers because they have agronomists, they have project planners that really know the space on the technical side. So in theory, it was a perfect plan. I was just like, this is gonna work great. And we would have, my vision was that we would have growers sign up for a 3-year pilot project. They would have in-class and on-the-field training with our agronomist. We would establish baseline metrics so that we can measure our impact year over year. So I was really excited. And right off the bat, our first challenge. So as soon as I'm going there and like trying to promote this project, I thought there'll be so much enthusiasm. I don't think we're gonna have enough space for everybody. I was met with hesitation and skepticism. So I was like, what's going on? And then I quickly realized that I knew Riverside had good intentions. I knew that for us, this was not some sustainability checklist we were trying to tick off. I knew we just really wanted to help our growers. But they didn't know that because the relationship was with the vendor partners. They didn't know who I was, who Riverside was. So I took it upon myself for the next 2 months. I got on Zoom calls and team calls and just created a platform so they could actually let me know what are their concerns, what are their opinion, how do they think that this project can move forward. And so that really helped. It also helped them to get to know who Riverside is and really build that trust. And so I wish I could say that the challenges ended there. However, we launched at the midst of a pandemic. So as you can tell, like nobody was able to go anywhere. We can visit the growers. So we can build that personal one-on-one connection. On top of that, ironically, our project coincided with an unprecedented drought in the Canadian prairies that actually affected our oat crop. So, which is, yeah, anyway. And the last challenge I want to also mention is that we also have turnover, both on the grower side as well as on the project team. So all in all, we still were able to push forward. We still able to get some impact and some deliverables, albeit a bit slower than I would have liked, but we still were able to make some progress. But even with all this, in the back of my mind, I was still like questioning, like, are we doing the right thing? Is this the right way? Are we actually gonna have impact? And just this past July, I had the opportunity to actually go and visit our growers and go to the fields and see how the harvest was doing after last year's drought. And then there was a moment on that trip that I remember clear as day. So we had everyone on the team just scattered across the oat field. We got the older, more experienced growers giving advice to the younger, more up-and-coming ones. We had our agronomist. She was on the ground with her hands in the soil. She was trying to explain to me what the role of the root nodules and relate with soil fertility. Don't ask me to repeat it. It was just very technical. But that picture just painted an image for me that this is what it's all about. It's about people coming together from different backgrounds and experiences, united by a common purpose, wanting to help each other, wanting things to get better. So to conclude, do I have 1 more minute? Okay. So to conclude, what I learned about when co-creating this project, which will come into its 2nd year this fall, is that we must continue to build bridges across our value chain if we're going to make an impact on climate change. Because no change happens in isolation. No change happens without trade-offs. And certainly no change happens without love and respect for each other and our planet. So as we go into our 2nd year, I'm sure there will be more challenges and more learnings, but I'm also very hopeful that we'll have some meaningful impact. Thank you.
Harry, I want to thank you for putting this great event together with your colleagues. It's certainly impressive the amount of time that goes into putting something like this together, and you've certainly done a great job along with your colleagues. So I want to recognize you for that. So I'm a director on Dynacert's board, which is a publicly traded company on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And I'm here to tell you the story of the company because it embodies sustainability at its core. The company was really started by a team of scientists and engineers. And even to this day, the team that exists believe fundamentally that we needed to do something about climate change now, not into the future, but we needed to come up with a solution that addressed how we can achieve a low carbon economy immediately. And the mechanical engineers, the chemical engineers, as well as the team of scientists that really came together were able to bring their expertise specifically within the hydrogen sector and developing a technology that could address the issue of carbon pollution and emissions in the immediate and near future. 20 years went by, over $100 million was invested, and there were certainly many, many obstacles that we had to be faced with, as many early stage companies deal with on a regular basis. Our colleague here mentioned here skepticism is something that you deal with, and the fact that people don't believe in you. This is something that unfortunately is a challenge amongst early stage companies, not just in Canada, but across the world. And in order for us to address climate change in a meaningful way, we have to be hopeful, we have to believe, we have to take risk. A lack of action is just as risky, if not more risky these days, as taking action. And so we believed, even though we were targeting the trucking industry as an example, as one of our key customer bases, the trucking industry did things the old way. They were buying skirts that were purchased for $10,000, saving 1% in fuel savings. And even though we were coming to them with a solution that not only addressed their emissions, but also produced something that was economical, there was still this level of skepticism that we had to deal with. So we had to go to various facilities to validate the technology. We had to spend years and years going through the PIT group, Emitech, ICAT, all around the world to try to have other scientists peer review and be able to come up with their analysis and publications to showcase that no, in fact, the technology that we've developed at Dynacert is in fact one that is able to address the challenges of climate change today. So one of the stories that I want to share you is we were trying to achieve homologation status in Europe. This allows you to commercialize your technology in the European Union. And one of the things that you have to do is you have to go through a rigorous process to get certification. And so we went to the German Transport Ministry. They put us in touch with TÜV Süd and TÜV North, and they made us go through a rigorous, comprehensive testing to determine whether or not the technology was able to achieve fuel savings and carbon emission reductions. So let me tell you what the technology does very briefly. This is a hydrogen on-demand technology that introduces trace amounts of hydrogen and oxygen at the source of the combustion of a diesel engine. It enhances the burn, it functions as a catalyst, and allows you to achieve fuel savings and carbon emissions, as I mentioned earlier. So the scientists go through analysis and they look at it and they go, wow, it in fact is hitting the kind of key indicators that were brought forward to us that they did at their lab. So the top engineer at TÜV Süd, his name is Michael Meyer. He goes, I don't believe it. This just can't be the case. So he went and he brought some engineers that did some peer reviewing. And you know, at that time, you're in the company and you may be losing hope because there's skepticism. That, oh my God, you know, what we came up with and what we ended up developing, perhaps there's something here that may not be the case, because this top engineer at TÜV Süd, one of the most recognized automobile validation facilities in Europe, is telling us that it can't be the case. You know, it's like no, guys, the Earth is round, it's not flat, and then they're telling you no, it's flat. So you're in this situation, and they bring the peer review engineers. The engineers come. They do the analysis on the dyno, and they do it in a controlled setting, very rigorous, and they get the same results. Over 8% fuel savings, significant carbon emission reductions, black smoke, which is the nitrogen oxide, up to 88% reduction. Some crazy numbers that we can achieve today, not tomorrow. It doesn't require public infrastructure. We're not talking about hydrogen fuel cells. We're talking about using your existing diesel engine and cleaning it. Okay, so it's not enough. Look, my friends, they may be right, but I still don't believe it. We're gonna have to get another facility to come in, get their engineers to validate this technology, because it can't be the case. Okay, they come. Another 6 months goes by. So just to put this into perspective, we're spending years and years going through this process in order to go to the trucking companies, in order to go to public sector entities to say, we have tested it, we have validated it, believe in us. So they go, third time they come, same results. It is now the last time that this last opportunity, they say, give us another 6 months. Okay, now 2 years has gone by. We're gonna go to the universities in Berlin and Frankfurt. We're going to get the top PhDs to come here to test this technology to determine whether or not you're telling us the truth, even though 3 other groups came and peer reviewed it and got the same results. The PhDs came, they did the test, another 6 months goes by, 2 years, and they get the same results. But think about what just happened here. We spent 2 years dealing with skepticism. We spent 2 years. And the point behind this is this: climate change is moving faster than the amount of time it takes for us to take action. We are not taking action as fast as climate change is moving ahead of us. And if we don't take risk, if we don't believe, if we don't adopt, if we don't adapt, we're going to be faced with a catastrophic crisis, and we're going to regret it. Every single person here in this room is a sustainability leader or has the ability to become a sustainability leader. You have it in you. You determine whether or not you want to move initiatives forward in your organization. And I think one of the biggest and best examples that I can note of is that poster right there on the wall, the case study with Electra. This is an organization that took risk, that was bold, that determined to be a leader in moving sustainability forward, and they achieved great results because of that. So believe in yourself, perseverance, don't give up. We cannot give up. We can't afford to give up. If you believe in something, move it forward and don't let the naysayers give you any hurdles, because as those German scientists and engineers first thought that it wasn't possible, they determined at the end that it was possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you feel the passion from all those speakers? And that's what we were hoping to accomplish tonight, because it was absolutely there, and we'll talk about that passion more so in terms of some of the common questions later on. So thank you all three for sharing those wonderful stories and the common challenges, the passion behind it, and some other stuff that I made some interesting notes on, which we'll come back to. So we have some questions, and we're putting them up here on the panel, but you don't have to turn around and get them. You've seen them. There's no surprises here. And I'm going to start with Eddie, and I'm moving around in a way that kind of divvies it up equitably in terms of where people start. So as you reflect back on your inspiring stories, what were some of the common words or phrases that you heard that described the obstacle you encountered, and why did these words stand out for you, Eddie?
I think oftentimes, I mean, people are going to say, like, as I was saying, like in our business, it's kind of like by nature is conservative. So usually it's like, is it going to work? Is it going to save us money? And oftentimes they would say, what is the payback? People, I'm sure you come across that kind of question all the time. And and I think and oftentimes what we deal with now, I mean, because of what we do, and we oftentimes deal with a lot, like whether it's a condominium or whether it's social housing, we deal with a lot of board directors. Like we have to meet with the board and saying, like, we're trying to sell the idea. And oftentimes it only takes like one or two persons to be really loud and say like, well, it's just not going to work, And then, I mean, you may have seen like how like sometimes like the group dynamics is, you usually would have like one or two persons that would be either the champion or they would be naysayer. And sometimes, and sometimes when we go into a group, we don't really know whether we're going to see a champion or naysayer. And so I would say, like, how do we deal with it? Sometimes we are able to, I think, like, to try to deal with that kind of dynamics, it's like we try to deal with, like, maybe talk to those people that will have influence to the group and see if we can convince them ahead of time.
Okay, Selma, you want to pick up from there?
So in terms of words, I can think of three. The first one is why. Everybody wants to know why and what's in it for me. So I think we did this training at Riverside about change management, and it starts with the why. So I think to have a project be really impactful, we need to start with the why. First for ourselves, to make sure that we're clear on what problem we're trying to solve before we get stakeholders involved. The second is impact. I don't want to do any project that I don't believe is going to have an impact, because that's going to be a waste of time for myself, for our stakeholders, waste of resources. So I was really mindful about that, and there were areas that we don't know if this is going to have an impact, so let's just talk about it. Let's not jump ahead before we know that there's something that's going to come out of it. And the third one is priorities, because there is a lot going on, both inside Riverside and obviously outside. And when working with stakeholders that are outside Riverside, there's always that alignment, right? Because there's so many competing priorities. How do we make sure that this particular one sits in sync with others? So that was something we had to consistently juggle and make sure that, what we felt was important was equally important to the rest of the project group. So I'll keep it there.
Yeah, this one I hear all the time. I want to be sustainable, but I don't want to pay for it. Well, okay, you're going to pay for it. Because if you don't today, if you don't make the investments that are necessary today in order to reduce our carbon footprint, we will pay for it down the line. And it will be in significant numbers. So this is something that I hear. The other thing that I hear is, oh, our policy, our legislation, our budget does not allow us to adopt or procure this technology. Well, you know, at some point within our organizations, we have to build flexibility. We have to build flexibility to be able to procure, to be able to adopt, to be able to adapt. Because again, by the time we go through bureaucratic inertia and bureaucratic processes, it's going to be too late. So we have to be mindful that climate change is moving fast, as I mentioned before, and we have to move faster. If we don't, we're going to be in trouble. So that's the other thing I hear is oh, it's our policy does not allow, and we need to go through this step and that step, and we have to go through 16 different chains of command, and we've got, okay, come on, like it's, you know, and I understand, but within the organization, there has to be certain procedures, a certain framework that allows for adoption, quick adoption, for the organization to take risk. So that's some of the things I hear often. And you know what? Be open-minded, because oftentimes, whether it's early stage companies, I got to tell you, like in Europe, we're doing very well. We're in 55 countries. We've got 47 dealers. And the Germans and the British and the Scottish are going, you know, why is it that the Europeans are adopting this technology, and you in your own backyard in Canada, you're having a hard time? And I don't know what to say to it. I don't know what to say to it. So Europe is moving very fast. Europe is very much ahead of the curve, I would say, in terms of relative to where we are. So we got to compare, we got to contrast, and we got to make sure that we're putting in flexibility and allowing for creativity to take place in our organizations.
So I think I mentioned it in my story. I think what I was really surprised about was the lack of trust. And we don't think of ourselves as a typical CPG company. So when I went in there to try to, you know, promote the project, and really excited, because honestly, we're putting money out of our pockets to help and make a difference, and we're getting resistance. And I'm like, why? Like, this makes zero sense to me. But then with self-reflection, I realized that we need to do a better job at also sharing out okay, we're a CPG company, yes, but these are all the things we're doing. I think one of the things we hold back, and we just get stuff done and we move forward. And I think one thing I've learned on this project is that we actually have to lead by example as we move forward, because that's going to set the stage. Because as a CPG company, if we're doing all these initiatives, other CPG companies are going to start to look and take notice and follow, right? So I think that was a change of perspective for me. A lot of skepticism, and I was like, wait a minute, we're trying to help. So that was a big surprise for me.
Okay, Amir?
Yeah, in the interest of always presenting you know, a proper business case for our technology, because we understand that sometimes we're dealing with customers or organizations, and they obviously want to go through a process of understanding what the return on their investment looks like, what is the quantitative analysis and all of that, you know, analyzing metrics and everything, and we understand that. So we thought, what other ways other than obviously fuel savings and carbon emission reductions can we look into in order to generate profit for our customers while being a sustainable solution? And that was through carbon credits. So we've gone through 2 years of bringing forward our methodology to monetize emission reductions. We developed a telematics software that in real time collects data when the vehicle is reducing emissions by adopting our hydrogen technology. And we're able to now, once we've been fully approved after 2 years by Verra, a global standard for carbon credit certification based out of the US, once we have approval, and we're in the last stages, be able to issue our customers and the organizations and partners that we work with the ability to monetize their emission reductions. So I'll give you an example. If you're an airline, you have no choice. You're going to continue to emit, but there is a way to offset your emissions by way of carbon credits, and we're able to sell those contracts to an airline as an example. We had a gentleman out of Europe who was so fascinated with the technology. He said, look, I'd like to invest in Dynacert. I'd like to invest in the company. And we said, fantastic. That caused a gentleman in Canada by the name of Eric Sprott, he's considered to be the Warren Buffett in the mining sector, to come in and say, oh, we'll match it, but we got to have our office go through a proper due diligence process. Office goes through a due diligence process. 4 months later, he's got a team of analysts, business analysts. They go through all the numbers. They understand our operations. They come back and they say, forget about matching the guy in Europe. I want to take 10% of the company. And we were shocked. We were surprised. And we couldn't understand why. He goes, I'll tell you why I'm doing this. There's no other company out there right now with the means and the ability to generate carbon credits and to issue carbon credit contracts the way your company is, because you've got a practical solution that can be adopted today, yesterday, and tomorrow, and it's going to be by some analysts that have put reports out worth trillions of dollars. So to me, that was surprising, because here's a guy that's coming in, he's saying, oh, I'll match, this person who's investing out of Europe, and then all of a sudden goes, oh my God, like I can't believe what I'm seeing, ends up taking 10% of the company.
I think like the surprise that I have, I would say is, and sometimes I'm sure like many of you probably have experienced the same, and my colleagues here probably experienced the same too. It's like people, like they don't have a sense that, while you are saying that okay, saving energy, sustainability is great, it's no brainer, but they don't get it, or they don't see the crisis and the priority, and sometimes. And I think this is what we deal with. I mean, so oftentimes it boils down to cost. So in order to convince them, is it basically we have to go, it has to be brought down to dollars and cents. However, the issue is that what is harder to convince to them is that sometimes it's not just dollars and cents. It's not just the cost. You may have to, while we're trying to convince people, oh, you do the energy saving, it's going to save you money both probably immediately or even in the long run. If you turn your bulb into like from fluorescent to LED, you save money and whatnot. Sure, that's good, but sometimes, those are all just the low-hanging fruits. Anything that is beyond that is not just dollars and cents, and sometimes it is hard to convince people to go beyond dollars and cents and saying like, hey, you have to protect the future. You have to, you have to change your own, your own like consumer or transactional mentality, and that is a big challenge. And if I may say something, is like sometimes I feel, I mean, we're all like energy sustainability champions here. I'm sure. Like, I mean, I'm probably talking to the converter. I mean, you all believe in that, but. Sometimes, but how about the people out there? We may be like the 10% or 20%. How about the 80% out there? How do we change the mentality that they all will subscribe to this, to sustainability? I mean, Amir was talking about like Europeans is a lot ahead of the game. In Canada, I think we are lucky because we have such a big country with so small population. Hey, it's like, well, we've got lots of resources to pluck. It's like, so it doesn't really enter into our mindset. So what can we do? I mean, sometimes I feel like maybe the government can do more, rather than talking about like showing like films about like a Canadian history.
You're sneaking into the third question here.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm just saying like, it is important that, to face the challenges, I wish like there would be more education.
So third question, I'm going to start with Amir. What did you learn from this endeavor, and what advice would you give the audience here tonight as they move forward on their sustainability journey within their organizations, with their customers or their partners?
Yeah, I think this comes back to my first series of points. There's a lot of power in perseverance, not giving up. If you believe that something is right, don't give up on it. And perhaps there are methods and ways that you need to communicate what it is that you believe in ultimately. If you're driving a sustainability initiative, it's important that you still respect. I understand, I said earlier, our policies, and sometimes there's constraints in moving things forward within our organizations. But there's also ways in which we can actually align our sustainability initiatives with those constraints in mind. So if, for example, it comes down to, you're mentioning dollars and cents, if it comes down to the dollars and cents, there are ways in which sustainability initiatives actually make business sense. There are ways in which there are fiscally responsible ways in which we invest our money within our organization. And sometimes it's about illustrating that to our superiors, to our associates and colleagues. So, I always hear about this whole notion that, sustainability and economics is mutually exclusive. It's not. It's not. There's totally a way to ensure that our sustainability projects and initiatives actually make economic sense, and it's incumbent on us to deliver that message and to be able to communicate that, present that effectively.
So what comes to mind for me is the quote, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." So we may have good intentions. We may think that we are making the impact that we wanted to in sustainability, in agriculture, whatever it is. But what I think I became sensitive to is also the path in which we choose, and really being mindful of the stakeholders that are in that path, and really being sensitive to their needs and their requirements while making that impact. So that was a big learning for me. The other one is more around gratitude, because we are lucky to be in a company that this is how we were born. Like, sustainability and doing the right thing and taking care of people and being compassionate was instilled in us in our parents. So this is just how we grew up. So when we come up with these sustainability initiatives, it's like upper management, everybody's just on board. There is no trying to convince. There is no, can I have a bit of resources or funding for this? It was like, is this the right thing to do? Is this going to make sense? Is this going to help people or the planet? No brainer, we're going to do it. So we have actually a list of initiatives that we're doing. But as we get deeper into this, and I talk to other people in our network, it's so hard in other places to get these initiatives funded and moving forward. They're all in their, their reportings or their initiatives, but nothing actually gets done. There's a lot of, dare I say, lip service, but nothing is actually moving to action. So I'm going to gloat a little bit. I'm really excited. I'm very happy to be at Riverside, because at least when we think of something and we know we're going to have an impact, there's so much support and alignment from upper management and our leaders, and I think that makes a big difference. So if you are a leader and if you can make, like Amir, you mentioned, if you can make a difference, it's our responsibility to do that.
I think like what I would like to share is it hasn't been like an easy road. I mean, just like my colleagues was telling you, like, because sometimes we have to see, like, people are skeptical about what we do, but I think if we believe what we do, we just have to continue doing it. And I think also, I have to say, like, this is the first time I attend like this, a meeting like this, to network with you guys, and to be able to walk the journey together with people who think alike, I think would be meaningful. Because sometimes when we are out there trying to sell our idea to people who are skeptical, it is a lonely journey. And so sometimes maybe by sharing a story with you guys, and then the same thing, we get reflection from you, support from you, then we can still soldier on. I think this is what we can share.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. I heard lots of commonality in terms of the conversation, stuff about skepticism. Yes, we've all encountered that in our lives and our missions that we're trying to accomplish. Perseverance came across very clearly as well. The passion to get it done, to take action, the plea of people coming together seem to be quite common, and sometimes that coming together creating more of a challenge or aggravating that skepticism. So lots of common thoughts and themes from the three panelists here tonight, or our storytellers. Any questions from the audience? We have a couple of minutes for that. If you have something you want to ask one of the panelists. Yeah, over here.
It's a question in the sense of how do you find people are responding, but my suggestion is I think they should towards
How do you find people responding? Is that the question?
responding to the climate change argument.
Okay, Amir, do you want to start with that?
Well, there's no, I don't think there's such a thing as politicization of climate change. Climate change is a fact. Whether you believe it or not, it's a different story. It's happening, it's real. It's not as much the politicization as it is habits. Yeah. Right.
People feel cynical about it, right? It's just because it's meaningless, right? Because when I say, well, I'm going to do this, but my heart might not be in it, so then people are not convinced, right? Whereas you're part of it, so that's what I.
So maybe this is something you want to do offline with one of the panelists here. That sounds like a little bit bigger than a question. What do you think?
Well, look, I think there is ways in which you can bring forward sustainable solutions that make sense economically. Now, you're talking about politics. We're talking policy. It's a different story. But what we're talking about here is technology, and we're driving technological solutions in order to address climate change. And we're being an economic development driver. We're creating jobs. We are creating new ways in which we can power and use energy sources. I mean, these are all things that I think should be welcome across the spectrum. That's what I would say to that.
I mean, it's just like when I want to talk about like maybe looking at it from more like political point of view, because like in politics, you're not going to win 100% of the votes. You'll win some. And as a matter of fact, I mean, like if you look at even like the current political climate, I mean, you've got somebody who has, I mean, you've got somebody, let's say on the left, on the right, who are really, convinced about what they believe. But then you have the people in the middle. So sometimes I know like what you're facing is that there will be some people that will never be able to convince. I mean, they will say, who cares about climate change? The world can end tomorrow, and I am happy, You have heard comments like that. They don't care whether the world is going to finish or not, So we probably won't be able to convince them. It's a religion to them, So, but probably people in the middle, like that's what we're trying to convince. I mean, so at the end, I think what we're trying to do is if we can win more than we lose, then we're winning.
Yeah, I'm not in politics. I can talk about CPG and brands and consumers. And I think for us and the experience that we've gone through is really building that trust. And how do you build that trust is a long road. It doesn't happen overnight, right? So you have to be intentional and you have to do what you say. I think I'm making it very simple, but it's not that complicated. To be authentic and to be genuine and really match your words with your action is essentially how we're building our brand and that trust of the consumer. And we have an allergen-free brand, so the trust becomes very important. For them to believe that this is a safe product for their children is something that, so I would emphasize a lot on trust.
Thanks very much. I would like to join with me in thanking our speakers for giving their time tonight.
ClimateWise Business Network was launched in around, well, the idea was long before 2016, but we've been around actively since that time, serving York Region businesses to set greenhouse gas emission targets and take action on climate change. through assisting them in building an action plan to reach those targets, and as I've said a number of times, building commitment in our community for taking action overall on the issue of climate change. It's been difficult, as we all have witnessed and experienced the last couple of years with the COVID impacts on our activities. Notwithstanding that time, in 2022, we welcomed 3 new members to the ClimateWise Business Network in 2022. One of them you heard tonight, our Eddie Locke and Community First Developments, Inc. We're certainly part of that. FAF Automotive also have just recently joined ClimateWise Business Network, and Holy Trinity Schools have joined the ClimateWise Business Network as full members, and we'll be working with them extensively in the coming months to help them set a target and develop an action plan for their activities. In that time, we also launched the ClimateWise Building Challenge, which you'll hear more about tonight and you've heard about before. And in that time, we're proud to be able to say that we have 100% participation of the York Region area municipalities and upper tier municipalities in the challenge. So we want to continue on that momentum tonight in the climate change field, and the awards that we had last year, which is pretty exciting, as Brent talked about with our Shania Twin tribute, and my tuxedo affair, which didn't go to tonight. Tonight we're going to be awarding members of the ClimateWise Business Network and participants in the ClimateWise Building Challenge for their activities in taking action on climate change. On an administrative side, I'm going to ask the award winners when they come up tonight to be able to go back to our photo wall to take a picture. And also some of you we're going to ask to kind of come back at the end of the evening so we can do a short video for our social media promotion of this particular event, and we'll also do that around the photo wall as well. So with that, I'd like to start our awards program for the ClimateWise Business Network. Our first award tonight is the Greenhouse Gas Target Setter Award. Ooh, that's a good idea. Great. This award goes to Riverside Natural Foods Incorporated, and we all know why. In 2021, Riverside, and you can feel the passion. In 2021, Riverside Natural Foods set a greenhouse gas reduction target goal to achieve 42% combined Scope 1 and 2 greenhouse gas emission reductions by 2030 relative to their 2020 baseline. As you heard in our Inspiring Stories panel, Riverside has the passion, I wrote this 2 weeks ago, and the staff commitment to make this happen and more. Please join me in congratulating Riverside Natural Foods and welcome Saba Fodavat to accept the award. Oh, Salma, you're coming up. Microphone, right? Okay.
I just want to dedicate this to our team. They are extremely passionate, hardworking. I'm just a mere representative of the passion and dedication they have, and really excited to share this with them tomorrow. Thank you.
Moving right along, the Greenhouse Gas Achiever Award. This year goes to Regional Municipality of York. Our members are hard at work initiating action to achieve their targets. In 2021, we want to celebrate the Regional Municipality of York as our biggest greenhouse gas reducer. Unfortunately, regional staff were not here to accept the award tonight. However, I do have a special mention to another member, Greenhouse Gas Achievement Award. In their first year of operation, I want you to join me in congratulating 407 ETR. They were a second close. Thank you, 407 ETR George Lovell, for your contribution for taking climate action, and keep on moving. I don't believe George is here tonight. No, George? Putting passion into practice. This award goes to Compugen Inc. Compugen Inc., a first in York Region to commit to sustainability and accountability with HP's Amplify Impact program, a first in York Region. Compugen pledged to become a change maker with HP's Amplify Impact program. HP's program invites partners to drive meaningful change across the global IT industry. Compigen actions include creation of a national green team, sustainable warehousing and logistics, and a launch of Compigen Financial Inc. of its Future Value program. Please join me in welcoming Karen Atkinson to the stage to accept the Putting Passion into Practice Award. And feel free to invite up your colleagues.
Oh, you want me to speak?
If you'll want to, yeah.
Thank you, everyone. This is for us as we journey forward into our own sustainability plan. We've really leveraged our strong partnership with HP to look globally at what they're doing, but it also helps us locally to do what we do with our customers and internally within our own organization. So, thank you.
Thank you. Our next award, Best Organizational Engagement Award. This award goes to the town of Newmarket. Big results were achieved by paying attention to the little things that matter, by focusing on clear communication, and by engaging staff from across the organization. A menu of little actions were identified, from tankless water heaters to boiler replacement. The implementation of these actions will result in a yearly saving of $132,000 yearly. Welcome Josh DeLong to accept the Best Organizational Engagement Award. And again, feel free to invite your colleagues up to the table if you like.
I think I'm just going to echo what these guys were saying up here earlier. This thing is, does it work? Yes, but does it work the best? Is it the most efficient? Are we leaving, the most behind for people who are coming after us? And just because it works doesn't mean it's doing the right thing. You need to make sure it's working and being the best at it at the same time.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. Greenhouse Gas Effective Action Plan Award. The City of Markham is on a net zero carbon journey. They proved achieving tangible emission reductions is doable with shared vision and effective action planning. An action program was developed to align with major funder requirements and supported by a host of strategic studies. The city expects GHG reductions of 1,213 megatons of carbon per year upon implementation. Please welcome Yokan Chu to accept the Greenhouse Gas Effective Action Plan. Did I pronounce your name properly?
It's Joking.
Joking, okay, all right. Anything would you like to say?
Well, yeah, we created these plans, and it's just the first step in meeting our goal of 80% GHG reductions by 2050. So next step is to actually implement what was recommended and make it happen.
Good, congratulations. You've heard a lot about innovation tonight from our panelists. You heard a lot about perseverance. So we're really proud to present this next award to Electra Utilities, the Most Innovative Leader Award. We are again proud to invite Electra Utilities to the stage. Electra Utilities piloted, you've heard a lot about this tonight from Amir, piloted with Dynacert Hydrogen system on diesel vehicles. Electra's goal is to continually research and test ways to meet GHG reduction targets. And you heard Amir talk about that tonight in terms of their commitment to doing things and being on the innovative edge. The results from the 6-month pilot project are outstanding. The case study board over here talks about it. On average, each vehicle reduced their diesel consumption by 230 liters. Electra expects to annually reduce emissions by 16,000 kilograms of CO2 through this fleet technology. Accepting Electra Utilities Award in partnership with Dynacert is Carolyn Carvonen, and I'd like to ask Amir to also come up tonight to join us in the acceptance. Carolyn? Oh, and please invite up your colleagues. Congratulations. Please join me again in welcoming and congratulating all our award winners for the ClimateWise Business Network for their perseverance and their passion in taking action on climate change. Thank you. I'd now like to ask my colleague Audrey to come up to present the ClimateWise Building Challenge Awards.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Working on ClimateWise Building Challenge has been an honor, and getting to know all of you and to help you get your data in and hear all your amazing stories of sustainability. So the ClimateWise Building Challenge Awards program is a free and friendly competition amongst commercial and institutional building owners and property managers in York Region. Our challenge is modeled on the EPA Battle of the Buildings in the US, which has experienced success for many years. Our regional challenge is also partnered with BOMA Toronto Race to Reduce, who capture the same metrics at a provincial level. We use Energy Star portfolio managers' quantitative metrics to assess year-over-year energy performance of buildings in the quest to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from buildings. In 2022, we have 154 buildings and tenant partners in the program. This number has doubled since our 2021 awards, mostly due to the increased commitment from our municipal partners to add almost all of their buildings. We also offer several qualitative awards to recognize best practices in building management. Tonight, we will begin our recognition with the Best Practices Awards. So just before we begin this awards part, I would like to remind you to look at the case study boards along the wall and realize that in some cases these provide far more details on why these awards were captured by different participants. And many thanks to the hard work done by the organizations who partnered with us to develop these case studies. Thank you very much. Our first award for the ClimateWise Building Challenge is the Zero Waste Award. The town of Newmarket realized significant savings by applying circular economy principles for pool filter sand replacement at the Magna Center Recreational Complex. Through proactive research by the facility maintenance supervisor, it was discovered that there was a means of doing a chemical cleaning of the sand instead of replacing it. Over 18,500 pounds of pool filter sand was diverted from going to a site for disposal. This solution realized a significant savings of $25,200 as well. Welcome to Andrea Cafisi to accept this award. Andrea, please feel free to invite your team to the stage.
You pretty much summed it up. Thank you.
This next in our qualitative award lineup is the Sustainable Building Innovation Award. This award goes to the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, York Region branches, and their facility management firm, BGIS. CIBC's traditional control platforms are geared toward medium to large buildings. They needed a scalable solution to resolve the inability for remote and real-time connectivity, which was the solution was to deploy the Smart Retail Controls 2018 pilot project, or the SRC, for 30 sites. This allows for 24/7 visibility to decrease response time on HVAC equipment errors across CIBC's wide network of buildings. This solution has rolled out to 350 locations with an average savings of 20% total energy consumption. Please join me in congratulating CIBC and their BGIS team, Brandon Yee and Mo Ayoub. Would you like to say something?
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Audrey, and the team here. And on behalf of CIBC Energy and Sustainability team, I would like to thank you all and appreciate the partnership with BGIS, my colleague here, Brandon. Thank you very much.
We'll now move on to our quantitative awards category, which is based on the data collected through Energy Star Portfolio Manager. This year, we have one winner capturing 3 of the 4 metrics that we collect, which was extremely impressive. The combined award for the biggest reducer of natural gas EUI and GHG. This award goes to Crown Property Management. They noticed that the practice at 101 McNabb was to run 4 boilers in the summertime for dehumidification purposes. The boilers ran 24/7 to reduce the muggy environment in the building. 2 of the 4 boilers were recently replaced with highly efficient models. The system was then designed to run on a sliding scale to maintain the ideal temperature and dehumidification. This equipment change saved 350 metric tons of CO2. Now in the summertime, 1 boiler is sufficient to maintain a comfortable environment in the building. Please welcome Jan B. Monsaud to accept this award. Okay. And her team. Thank you so much.
I'm going to go in here.
Yeah, would you like to say something, Jan B?
Well, we're on a mission. This was just one building, and we've got lots more to go. So thank you, everybody. And on behalf of Crown Property Management, we're one of your partners.
Yeah,
Yep.
you got it. So now we'll move on to the biggest reducer of electricity use award, which goes to CIBC, York Region's branches, and their facility management firm, BGIS. There are 10 CIBC sites that are participants in the ClimateWise Building Challenge, and they are also part of the CIBC Smart Retail Controls SRC project that we mentioned earlier. And due to being involved in that project, we had 2 properties, 15 Harry Walker Parkway and 700 Markland Street, that were in 1st and 3rd place for electricity reduction category. Please join me in congratulating CIBC and Julia Tessay from BGIS accepting this award. There we go. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Would you like to say something?
So again, thank you everyone. And I'm joined by BGIS Director for Energy and Sustainability. So thank you, Julia.
Yeah, and thank you for the opportunities to recognize those, our efforts.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're moving on to the municipalities, who are very, very important partners with the ClimateWise Building Challenge. And thank you to everyone who worked so hard to get your data in, to be collected an Energy Star Portfolio Manager. I know how hard it is and all the multiple roles you play within your staff responsibilities. So this year we decided to present an award for the top-ranked municipal building in each York Region municipality. For this award, ClimateWise Building Challenge reviewed energy metrics for 115 municipal buildings in total. The top-ranked building from each municipality is being recognized for their collective reduction achievements across the metrics of electricity, natural gas, and GHG. Please take special note that these are reductions achieved outside of occupancy impacts resulting from COVID protocols. The buildings affected by occupancy rates were not used for our awards program, but in this regard, we would like to give special recognition to all the municipal facility teams whose proactive actions resulted in a total GHG reduction of 278 metric tons of CO2 saved during COVID. We were able to glean this stat through the dedicated input of data into Energy Star Portfolio Manager by all these facility managers, then identifying which buildings implemented shutdown of high energy use assets such as pools and ice rinks. We want to acknowledge these outstanding efforts in individual municipalities. And now we'll move on to each of the municipal top-ranked buildings. Okay, City of Vaughan, top-ranked building is the City Hall, And we have Jim Ballin here to accept the award. It's hard not to applaud. You're right. Go ahead. You can applaud for each person coming up. Next municipality, the City of Richmond Hill for their Operations Center, accepted by Miles and Deepak. And we have the City of Markham for the Flato Performing Arts Theater, accepted by Aaron Chung. And will the Town of Whitchurch Stouffville for the Stouffville Community Arena at 12483 9th line, accepted by Brian Slater and his team. Come on up. Now we have the Town of Newmarket with their, the Township of King City for the Tristan Center. Unfortunately, there were no staff available to come tonight. And then following that, we have the Town of Aurora for the Aurora Town Hall. Again, no staff were available to come tonight, sadly. And moving on to the Town of Newmarket for the McCaffrey Fire Hall, accepted by Andrea Kafisi. Let's now move on to the Town of East Gwillimbury for their sports complex, accepted by Christina Ross. And we have now the Town of Georgina for their Egypt Community Center, Community Hall, accepted by Tim McClatchy. Oops, these were out of order. We have. Might have given somebody the wrong one. Thank you very much. We'll fix that in 1 second. The Regional Municipality of York for their 55 Orlando Transit Garage, and sadly no one from the region was able to come to the event tonight. Can we please have a big round of applause for our top-ranked buildings?
Thank you, Audrey, and let's join me again for welcoming and congratulating our ClimateWise Building Challenge participants. So we pretty much come to the end of the evening with only two small things left to do, well, one large thing, and I'd like to ask Priyanka Lloyd, Executive Director, or Director of the Green Economy Canada Network, to come up and say some final words. I have one more thing I need to say to you before the evening ends, and we enjoy the last component of our refreshments and some desserts. Priyanka?
Okay, hi everyone. Audio here is okay? Okay. So great to see you all here today. So my name is Priyanka Lloyd. I'm the Executive Director at Green Economy Canada. And for some of you that may not know, ClimateWise Business Network is one of 10 green economy hubs across the country. So our organization, Green Economy Canada, we lead a national network supporting community-based programs like ClimateWise to do, the great work that's happening here tonight, really bringing together businesses in the community that want to make a difference, supporting you to achieve the ambitions that you have, and really celebrating progress. Now is the time to transform business as usual. Last year at COP26, for those of you who are familiar with the annual conference of the parties, this is where global leaders get together every year and talk about how we're making progress on climate action and how we're adapting to the impacts of it. Last year at COP26, what we learned was that based on the commitments that countries have made right now, or the action plans that are in place, We are on track to increase emissions 14% by 2030, rather than halve it like science tells us we need to do. At the same time, we've never had more global support for climate action, right? It's unprecedented with the Paris commitment. We're seeing the impacts in our communities, but we know that there's more work to do, and having commitments is not enough. And that's where all you folks in this room come in play. We cannot meet our climate goals without each one of you playing a role in that massive transformation that needs to happen. And climate action is about both individual and collective action. Sam, I'm going to borrow some words that you said here that were really, perfectly sum things up. We're going to get to where we need to be when we can get diverse groups of people coming together around a shared vision, common purpose, to create something better. And that's what all of you folks in this room are doing today. You are each leading in your own way through the actions that you're taking, and the awards that you've received tonight are celebrating some of that. But we need more businesses in this room. We need you to keep doing more. And, just in the few conversations I've had with folks, Eddie, I heard you say it when you were up here, it's kind of refreshing. Sometimes it can feel like we're alone doing this work. It can feel like we're trying to push a massive boulder up a hill. But when we get together in a room like this and we hear the common stories, we see that there's actually lots of people doing this kind of work and that really care about what we're doing. So please keep doing the work that you're doing. The role of organizations like Windfall, networks like ClimateWise, is to elevate your stories and to really show other organizations in this community, for us across the country, that something better is possible. And your leadership matters. It matters in changing the status quo. It matters in changing the expectations for businesses. And we know that there's a lot on the line here. So it can feel depressing and daunting at times, but really the leadership and the inspiration that you are providing today, and when you go back to your workplaces, to your employees, to your community, it matters. So please keep doing what you're doing. All of the members of our network, so you folks at ClimateWise, you're part of a larger national network, and you're known as green economy leaders. And the reason that you're known as leaders is because you're paving the way for a better future. So please continue to do what you're doing. We're really excited to kind of see the progress that's being made here in York Region. Please identify other folks in the community that you think could get involved. This is something that is possible for us to do. We can make a better future. We can achieve our climate goals. It starts with your leadership at the community level, and believe me, there are many organizations like you across this country that want to do the same. So thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. Thank you for your leadership, and thanks to Harry and team for the incredible work that they're doing.
Thank you, Priyanka. Wonderful closing words to the program tonight, and very meaningful in terms of the momentum. I'll go back to my very first words at the beginning of this, as the momentum we're trying to build in our community for taking action on climate change. And we make sure that our community knows about it. So all of our case studies, all of the award winners tonight with their pictures will be on our website in the next day or so. It's all ready to go. We're just going to put the pictures in there. And also I want to bring your attention to the fact that all the award winners tonight are being promoted and communicated with through the 3,226 subscriber circulation of the York Star Metroland Media Group papers, which are circulating as we speak tonight and tomorrow in York Region. We brought copies with us tonight. So if you want to bring a copy, I've showed you where the insert is on the page in the paper for the Aurora banner, but it's also going to go in the Wichita-Stouffville Tribune and pictures and papers in Richmond Hill and Vaughan and across the community. So you can take one of those with you tonight to see how your organization is being promoted to our broader community to build a momentum for climate change in York Region and beyond. So again, I want to have a special thank you to our guest speaker storytellers tonight. Wonderful, passionate, persevering stories to hear. We learned some good insights from them all. Thank you, all three of you. Congratulations again to our award winners, and we look to be bigger and better next year, and very happy that we could do this in person. Thank you very much.